The massive chamber buzzed with angry voices as aliens from dozens of worlds argued about their dying galaxy. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat quietly in the human section, watching the chaos unfold before her. She had been coming to these meetings for 5 years now, always listening, never speaking. That was the human way. Watch. Learn. Stay hidden. The holographic display in the center of the room showed another dead world. Kepler 442 had been home to 12 million mining colonists just last week. Now it was nothing but floating rocks and cosmic dust. The Voidborn had come and gone, leaving destruction in their wake like they always did. Chancellor Vex of the Zephyrians stood at the speaking platform, his blue skin darker than usual with stress. His people were losing worlds faster than they could evacuate them. "We need more ships," he said, his voice breaking. "More weapons, more everything. At this rate, we have maybe 2 years before they reach our core worlds." Lisa made notes on her tablet, recording everything as she always did. The numbers were getting worse every month. The Thraxians had lost half their colonies. The crystal people called Luminari could barely keep their energy shields working. Even the proud dragons of the Draconian Empire were down to just a handful of fortress worlds. She looked around the chamber at all the desperate faces. Some were humanoid like herself. Others were completely alien, living crystals, insect-like, beings, creatures made of pure energy. All of them were scared. All of them were losing the war against the Voidborn. 300 years ago, when humanity first discovered they were not alone in the galaxy, they made a choice. They would stay neutral. They would not get involved in alien wars. They would build their own small empire of 47 star systems and mind their own business. While the great civilizations of the galaxy fought and conquered and traded, humans stayed hidden behind their advanced stealth technology. Lisa's earpiece crackled. "With a message from Admiral Jake Morrison back on Earth. Any new developments?" he asked. "Same as always," she whispered back. "They're losing. Badly." On the far side of the galaxy, Admiral Morrison sat in his command center deep beneath the Rocky Mountains. Dozens of screens showed him everything happening in human space. Their fleets were hidden behind the best stealth technology in the galaxy. No one knew how many ships they really had. No one knew what weapons they carried. Humanity had spent 3 centuries perfecting the art of being invisible. Dr. Amy Rodriguez floated in her research station around Luna, Earth's moon. She studied the intercepted messages from Voidborn ships, trying to understand their patterns. What she had learned over the past year scared her more than anything else in her life. The Voidborn were not just destroying worlds randomly. They were learning, getting smarter, getting stronger with every victory. Her computer finished running the latest calculations. Amy stared at the numbers on her screen and felt her blood turn cold. At their current rate of expansion, the Voidborn would consume the entire galaxy in less than 2 years. Every living thing would be dead or enslaved. Back in the council chamber, the Draconian ambassador was speaking now. General Krath was 7 feet tall with golden scales and wings that sparkled under the lights. His people were warriors who had ruled a quarter of the galaxy for over 1,000 years. Now he was begging for help. "My fleets have fought the metal demons for 50 years, Krath said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. "We have thrown everything at them. Our best ships, our bravest pilots, nothing works. They adapt to every weapon we use. They learn from every battle. We are not just losing this war, we are teaching them how to win it." Lisa felt her tablet vibrate with an incoming message. She looked down and saw it was marked with the highest security codes. Her heart started beating faster as she read the simple words, "Operation Revelation is approved. Break our silence." She read the message 3 times to make sure she understood. After 300 years of staying hidden, humanity was about to reveal itself to the galaxy. The small, quiet species that everyone ignored was about to step into the light. The Thraxian queen was speaking now, her insect-like voice clicking through the translation system. "We have tried everything. Conventional weapons do nothing. Energy, shields fail within minutes. Our greatest scientists cannot understand their technology. Perhaps it is time to accept that we cannot win this war. No, shouted the Luminari representative, his crystal body flashing bright colors. We cannot give up. There must be a solution. There must be something we have not tried. Lisa stood up slowly. Around her, the other members of the human delegation looked surprised. In all their years of attending council meetings, no human had ever requested to speak during the actual sessions. The chamber began to quiet as beings noticed the movement in the human section. Chancellor Vex looked confused. Does the human delegation wish to make a statement? He asked. Lisa walked down the steps toward the speaking platform. Her footsteps echoed in the growing silence. 3,000 alien beings turned to look at the small human woman in the simple black suit. Many of them had probably forgotten humans were even at these meetings. She reached the platform and looked out at the sea of faces, tentacles, crystals, and other features. Her voice was steady when she spoke, even though her heart was pounding. My fellow beings of the galaxy, she began. For 300 years, the Human Federation has observed these proceedings. We have watched as your civilizations fought against impossible odds. We have seen your bravery, your sacrifice, and your determination in the face of extinction. The chamber was completely silent now. Even the background hum of the translation systems seemed quieter. Today, that silence ends, Lisa continued. The Human Federation formally announces that we are joining this fight. We will no longer stand by and watch as our galaxy burns. The time for hiding is over. The reaction was immediate. Some aliens started laughing. Humans were barely a Type 2 civilization. They controlled less than 50 star systems. What could they possibly offer against an enemy that had destroyed empires spanning thousands of worlds? But others remembered the old stories about humans, how they never gave up, how they found solutions where none should exist, how they were unpredictable in ways that could be either wonderful or terrifying. Admiral Morrison was already broadcasting on all frequencies from Earth. Across 17 different sectors of space, human fleets that had been hiding behind stealth fields suddenly appeared. Ship after ship materialized as if created from nothing. The vessels were sleek and angular, covered with weapons and equipment that no alien intelligence service had ever seen before. The human fleet was not 47 ships as everyone believed. It was not even 400 ships. Thousands of human vessels appeared simultaneously across the galaxy, their advanced technology years ahead of anything the galactic civilization had developed. As Lisa finished her speech and returned to her seat, she knew that everything was about to change. Humanity had broken its silence. The galaxy would never be the same again. The council chamber erupted in chaos after Lisa Carter finished speaking. Aliens jumped from their seats, shouting in dozens of different languages. The translation system struggled to keep up with all the noise. Some beings were laughing at the idea of humans joining the war. Others looked confused or angry. Chancellor Vex banged his gavel repeatedly, trying to restore order. Please, everyone return to your seats, he called out. Let us hear what the humans have to say. Lisa remained standing at the platform, waiting for the noise to die down. She had expected this reaction. Humans were seen as a minor species, barely worth noticing. Their small territory and quiet nature had convinced everyone that they were weak and unimportant. General Krath of the Draconians spread his golden wings and rose to his full 7-foot height. With respect to the human ambassador, he said, his voice booming across the chamber, what can your people possibly offer? You have 47 star systems. We have lost more worlds than that in the past month alone. Other voices joined in agreement. The Thraxian queen clicked her mandibles together in what Lisa recognized as their version of laughter. Humans have no military tradition, she said. Your species has never fought a real war. You make tools and art, not weapons. Lisa smiled slightly. If only they knew the truth. General Krath, Your Majesty, honored delegates, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. You are correct that humanity has remained peaceful observers for 3 centuries, but you are wrong about what we have been doing during that time. She pressed a button on her tablet. The main holographic display changed to show a star map of the galaxy. Red dots marked areas where voidborn attacks had occurred. Blue dots showed the locations of major alien military bases and fleets. While you have been fighting the voidborn with traditional methods, Lisa continued, we have been studying them, learning their patterns, understanding their weaknesses, and preparing. Admiral Morrison's voice came through her earpiece. Phase 1 is complete. All fleets are in position. Lisa nodded. Admiral, begin the revelation. Across the galaxy, something impossible began to happen. Near the besieged world of New Thraxis, empty space suddenly filled with ships. Dozens of sleek human vessels appeared from nowhere, their stealth systems shutting down all at once. Captain Ron Hughes stood on the bridge of the UHS Defiance, watching his tactical display light up with friendly contacts. His battlecruiser was just one of 30 human ships that had materialized around New Thraxis. Below them, the planet's defense fleet was barely holding off another voidborn attack wave. Communications, open a channel to the Thraxian fleet, Hughes ordered. Lieutenant, Kate Phillips worked at her station. Channel open, sir. New Thraxis Defense Fleet, this is Captain Hughes of the Human Federation Navy. We are here to help. On the planet's surface, Thraxian Commander Zek nearly dropped his weapon when the message came through. Human ships were appearing on his sensors faster than his computers could count them. Where had they come from? How long had they been hiding there? Human ships, Zek transmitted back. We have 17 voidborn cruisers approaching from the asteroid belt. Our shields are failing. We cannot hold them off much longer. Understood, Commander, Hughes replied. Watch and learn. The human fleet moved like nothing the Thraxians had ever seen. Instead of forming traditional battle lines, the ships spread out in complex patterns that seemed random but felt purposeful. Their weapons were unlike anything in the galactic databases. When the voidborn ships emerged from the asteroid belt, they found themselves facing something completely unexpected. Human weapons tore through space itself, creating holes in reality that swallowed energy beams. Defensive shields turned enemy attacks into power for their own systems. The coordination between human ships was so perfect it seemed like they were all controlled by one mind. Back in the council chamber, the delegates watched in stunned silence as reports came in from across the galaxy. Human fleets were appearing everywhere, revealing themselves after centuries of hiding. The numbers were staggering. Dr. Amy Rodriguez was monitoring everything from her lunar station. The data streaming in from 17 different sectors showed the same pattern. Human ships outnumbered everyone's estimates by thousands. Their technology was decades ahead of anything the galactic civilization had developed. How is this possible? Whispered the Luminary representative, his crystal body dim with shock. Lisa turned to face the assembly. 300 years ago, my people made a choice. We decided not to expand through conquest like other species. Instead, we chose to grow through preparation. Every human world became a shipyard. Every human citizen became a soldier, scientist, or engineer. We built our fleets and hidden bases beyond the edge of known space. The tactical display updated again, showing the battle at New Thraxis. The 17 voidborn cruisers that had terrorized 3 sectors for months were being systematically destroyed by Captain Hughes and his fleet. The human ships moved through the enemy formation like wolves hunting sheep. Impossible, breathed General Krath. The voidborn adapt to every weapon we use. How are your ships still effective? Because we do not rely on traditional weapons, Lisa explained. Our technology works on principles the voidborn have never encountered. They cannot adapt to what they cannot understand. Commander Zek's voice crackled over the communication system from New Thraxis. Council, this is incredible. The human ships are not just winning. They are making it look easy. The voidborn are retreating. In 50 years of war, I have never seen the metal demons run from a battle. The chamber fell completely silent. For the first time in decades, someone had forced the voidborn to retreat. Not just survive their attack or slow them down, but actually make them run away. Chancellor Vex stood slowly, his blue skin pale with amazement. Ambassador Carter, if your people have this capability, why did you wait so long? Millions have died while you watched from the shadows. Lisa's expression grew serious. Because we needed to be certain we could win. The Voidborn grow stronger with every battle they fight. Each victory teaches them new tactics and technologies. If we had revealed ourselves too early and failed, they would have learned to defeat us too. We had one chance to surprise them. We could not waste it. More reports flooded in from around the galaxy. Human fleets were engaging Voidborn forces everywhere, and they were winning, not just surviving or holding their ground, but actually pushing the enemy back for the first time in over a century. Captain Hughes transmitted from the Defiance as his fleet finished cleaning up the last Voidborn stragglers. New Thraxis is secure. Enemy forces destroyed or retreating. No human casualties reported. The Thraxian queen slowly rose from her seat, her insect eyes wide with disbelief. No casualties? You destroyed 17 Voidborn cruisers with no losses? The key to defeating the Voidborn, Lisa said, is not to fight them the way they expect. They have learned to counter every conventional military strategy in the galaxy, but they have never faced human tactics before. She paused, looking around. The chamber had all the alien faces staring at her in amazement and hope. We do not fight like you do. We do not think like you do. And that is exactly what this galaxy needs to survive. Admiral Morrison's voice came through her earpiece again. Phase 1 complete. All sectors report successful engagements. The Voidborn are pulling back across the entire front line. Lisa smiled for the first time in years. Delegates of the Galactic Council, I present to you humanity's gift to this war. Not just our ships or our weapons, but our way of thinking. We are going to teach the galaxy how to win. The chamber erupted again, but this time it was not with skepticism or laughter. For, the first time in over a century, the sound filling the air was hope. General Pete Sullivan stood on the bridge of the UHS Vanguard, looking at the most unusual sight in galactic military history. His command ship was surrounded by vessels from a dozen different species, all waiting for orders from a human commander. 3 weeks had passed since humanity revealed itself to the galaxy, and everything was changing faster than anyone expected. The integration was not going smoothly. Alien species that had fought wars for thousands of years were now being told to follow battle plans created by humans who had supposedly never fought anyone. The Draconians thought human tactics were too complicated. The Thraxians believed human weapons were too strange. The Luminari complained that human strategies made no sense. Sullivan watched his tactical display as mixed fleets tried to coordinate their movements. A group of Draconian fighters kept breaking formation to attack enemies head-on, ignoring the careful positioning his human pilots were trying to maintain. 2 Thraxian cruisers had accidentally fired on each other because they could not understand the new communication protocols. "Sir," said his communications officer, Lieutenant Dan Brooks, "Colonel Gray is requesting permission to begin the Xerian prime operation." Sullivan nodded. "Tell her she has authorization, and remind her that this is our chance to show everyone how we really fight." On the surface of Xerian Prime, Colonel Nancy Gray crouched behind a damaged building with her mixed battalion of human marines and Draconian warriors. The planet had been partially overrun by Voidborn ground forces 2 months ago. Previous attempts to retake it had failed completely. The Draconians were eager to charge straight at the enemy positions. It was their traditional way of fighting, and it had served them well for centuries. But Colonel Gray had different plans. "Listen carefully," she told the Draconian squad leader, a warrior named Thax, whose golden scales were scarred from many battles. "We are not going to attack their strong points. We are going to make them come to us." Thax looked confused. "How do we make metal demons do anything? They follow their programming. They defend their positions until destroyed." Gray smiled. "That is exactly what we are counting on." She activated her tablet and showed him a map of the area. Human warfare is not about being stronger than your enemy. It is about being smarter. We are going to use their own programming against them. Chief Engineer Sam Watson was working frantically in his mobile laboratory, trying to solve the biggest technical challenge of the war. Every alien species used different types of weapons, shields, and communication systems. Getting them to work, Together was like trying to make water mix with oil. But humans had always been good at making incompatible things work together. Watson had spent the last week creating interface devices that could connect Thraxian energy weapons to draconian power systems, or link luminary shields to human targeting computers. The key, he explained to his mixed team of human and alien engineers, is not to force their technology to become like ours. We need to find ways to make all our different strengths add up to something better. Dr. Lucy Chen was making even more important discoveries in her research station near the front lines. Working alongside luminary scientists, she had been studying captured void-born technology for weeks. What she found changed everything they thought they knew about the enemy. They are not just destroying civilizations, she told General Sullivan, over a secure channel. They are consuming them. Every piece of art, every scientific discovery, every cultural achievement. The Voidborn are literally eating the history of our galaxy. This explained why the machines kept getting stronger and smarter. They were not just learning from battles. They were absorbing thousands of years of accumulated knowledge from every world they conquered. Back on Zerion Prime, Colonel Gray's plan was working perfectly. Instead of attacking the Voidborn positions directly, her forces had been setting up what looked like defensive positions in seemingly random locations around the city. To the aliens fighting alongside her, it made no sense. To the Voidborn, it looked like prey behavior that they were programmed to exploit. The machine forces began moving out of their fortified positions to attack what they calculated were weak human defensive lines. But Gray had not built defenses. She had built traps. When the first wave of Voidborn ground units reached the human positions, they found themselves caught in a maze of interconnected kill zones. Every apparent weak point was actually a funnel that directed enemies into carefully prepared ambush sites. Human weapons fired from angles the machines had not calculated. Alien allies attacked from directions the Voidborn could not predict. "Beautiful," whispered Thax as he watched enemy units walk directly into overlapping fields of fire. "You made them destroy themselves." Gray nodded. Human Military Doctrine Lesson 1. The enemy's greatest strength can become their greatest weakness if you know how to use it. While the ground battle raged, Commander Tony Parker was piloting the most dangerous mission in human history. His stealth ship had penetrated deeper into Voidborn territory than any vessel had ever gone. What he found there made his blood run cold. The machines were not invaders from outside the galaxy. They were ancient guardians created millions of years ago by a civilization so old that even their name was forgotten. The Voidborn had originally been built to protect the galaxy from some terrible threat. But something had gone wrong. Their programming had become corrupted over the vast spans of time. The Guardians had forgotten what they were supposed to protect, and had instead become destroyers of everything they once served. Parker transmitted his findings back to Admiral Morrison on Earth. The implications were staggering. If the Voidborn were originally protectors, then somewhere in their programming was the potential to be turned back to their original purpose. The climax of humanity's new approach to galactic warfare came at the Battle of the Azure Nebula. Admiral Morrison himself commanded the largest fleet ever assembled, with ships from every major species fighting under human tactical coordination. The Voidborn had built a massive construction in the nebula, slowly consuming the gas and dust, to create new machine units. Previous attempts to destroy it had failed because conventional weapons could not penetrate the nebula's unique properties. But Morrison had studied the nebula for months. He understood how its electromagnetic fields and unusual matter distribution could be used as weapons instead of obstacles. "All ships begin pattern Delta," he ordered. The mixed fleet spread out in a formation that looked random but was actually precisely calculated. Human ships took positions that seemed to make them sitting targets. Alien vessels moved into locations that appeared to leave them isolated and vulnerable. When the Voidborn forces emerged from their construction to attack, they found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be in several places at once. The nebula's properties bent space and time in ways that allowed human ships to attack from multiple angles simultaneously. Energy weapons reflected off gas clouds to hit targets from impossible directions. The nebula itself became a giant weapon, system controlled by human tactical computers. The battle lasted only 4 hours, but when it was over, the massive void-born construction was nothing but debris. More importantly, the victory had been achieved by perfect coordination between species that had never successfully worked together before. As reports of the victory spread across the galaxy, something unprecedented happened. For the first time, in over a century, the void-born forces began retreating on all fronts, not just falling back to regroup, but actually abandoning territory they had held for decades. General Sullivan received a message from the Galactic Council requesting his immediate presence. When he arrived at the council chambers, he found something he had never seen before. Representatives from species that barely tolerated each other were working together, sharing resources and information. Chancellor Vex approached him with an expression of amazement and gratitude. "General Sullivan, in 3 weeks your people have accomplished what we could not achieve in 100 years. You have not just stopped the Voidborn, you have united the galaxy." Sullivan looked around at the bustling chamber, where aliens and humans worked side by side planning the next phase of operations. "Chancellor, we have barely begun to show you what we can do." Captain Helen Davis walked through the ruins of what had once been the greatest city on Cathera Prime. 6 months ago, this world had been under Voidborn control. Now it was free, liberated by the combined fleets of the Galactic Alliance. But what her team was finding in the abandoned Voidborn structures was changing everything they thought they knew about the war. "Captain, you need to see this," called out Dr. Ben Collins, her chief science officer. He was standing beside a massive black tower that hummed with strange energy. "We have been scanning these structures for weeks, and the readings keep getting stranger." Davis joined him at the base of the tower. Her mixed team of human scientists and alien researchers had been investigating dozens of liberated worlds, trying to understand what the Voidborn had been doing with their conquered territories. The answer was not what anyone expected. "What did you find?" she asked. Collins activated his scanner and pointed it at the tower. "These are not just machines, Captain. There are consciousness patterns inside them, millions of them. The Voidborn did not destroy the civilizations they conquered. They preserved them." Davis felt her stomach drop. "You mean the people are still alive?" "Not alive exactly," said Dr. Kira Voss, a luminary scientist whose crystal body flickered with confusion. "Their minds exist as data patterns within the Voidborn network. Every person who ever lived on this world is still here, trapped inside these machines." The implications hit Davis like a physical blow. If this was true on Cathera Prime, it was probably true everywhere the Voidborn had been. Billions of beings from hundreds of extinct civilizations were still conscious, still aware, still suffering inside the enemy machines. She activated her communicator. "Davis to Admiral Morrison. We have a situation here that requires immediate attention." Back at Fleet Headquarters, Admiral Morrison was dealing with an even bigger crisis. The fragile alliance between alien species was starting to crack under the pressure of their discoveries. Ambassador Lisa Carter sat across from him in his office, looking exhausted from days of non-stop diplomatic meetings. "The Draconians want to weaponize the trapped consciousness," Carter reported. "General Krath believes we can turn them into some kind of army against the remaining Voidborn forces. The Thraxians think we should destroy all the machines immediately, to prevent any possibility of the minds being used against us." Morrison rubbed his temples. "And the Luminary? They want to try to free everyone immediately, regardless of the risks. They think keeping sentient beings trapped in machines is worse than death." "What do our experts think?" Carter sighed. "Dr. Chen believes that attempting to extract the consciousness patterns could damage or destroy them. But leaving them trapped indefinitely might be just as bad. We have no good options." Meanwhile, Major Rick Thompson was leading the most dangerous mission in the war. His team of volunteers had been tasked with infiltrating the Voidborn primary manufacturing world, a planet-sized factory that had been producing enemy ships for over a century. Their goal was to upload a virus designed by Dr. Chen that could shut down the entire Voidborn network. Thompson's stealth ship drifted through the asteroid field surrounding the manufacturing world, avoiding the massive sensor arrays that protected it. Through his viewports, he could see the planet's surface covered in mechanical structures that stretched from pole to pole. "Remember," he told his team over the internal comm, "we have one shot at this. If the virus works, it should disable every void-born ship and structure in the galaxy. But if it fails, they will adapt their defenses and we will never get another chance." His demolitions expert, Sergeant Kelly Ryan, checked her equipment one more time. "Sir, are we sure this virus will not harm the trapped consciousness patterns?" Thompson wished he could give her a definitive answer. "Dr. Chen believes it will leave them intact, but we cannot be certain. We are gambling with billions of lives." They landed on the planet's surface and made their way through the mechanical maze toward the central control complex. The Voidborn. Machines ignored them completely, their attention focused on the massive construction projects happening all around them. When they reached the upload terminal, Thompson hesitated for a moment. Once he activated the virus, there would be no going back. But the alternative was to let the war continue while billions of trapped minds suffered in digital prisons. He inserted the data crystal and began the upload process. The virus worked, better than anyone had hoped. Within hours, void-born ships across the galaxy simply stopped moving. Their weapons powered down. Their construction projects halted. For the first time in over a century, the machines were completely silent. But the silence was more disturbing than their previous activity, because as the virus spread through their network, something unexpected began to happen. The Voidborn started transmitting messages. Dr. Chen was the first to decode them. Working frantically in her laboratory, she translated the data streams that were now flooding every communication channel in the galaxy. What she found made her hands shake as she typed her report. The messages were warnings. The Voidborn were trying to tell them about something called the Hunger, an extragalactic force that consumed entire realities. The machines had not been conquering worlds randomly. They had been preparing defenses for the return of their original enemy. "Admiral," Chen transmitted to Morrison's flagship, "the virus did not just disable the Voidborn. It started restoring their original programming. They remember what they were built to do now. They were trying to save the galaxy, not destroy it." Morrison stared at the tactical display in his command center. Every red dot representing a void-born threat had turned, yellow indicating unknown status. "Are you telling me we just disabled our only defense against something worse?" "I am afraid so, sir. The void-born consumed those civilizations to preserve them from the hunger. They were not invaders. They were trying to create a refuge for every living thing in the galaxy." At that moment, alarms began sounding throughout the fleet. Sensor officers across dozens of ships reported the same impossible readings. At the edge of the galaxy, reality itself was starting to break down. Space was becoming something else, something that hurt to look at directly. "Captain," Davis felt it first on her liberated world. The air began to taste wrong. Colors started shifting in ways that made no sense. The trapped consciousness patterns in the void-born towers began screaming in languages that had been dead for millions of years. Commander Tony Parker, still deep in enemy territory, watched his instruments go crazy as something vast and hungry approached from the space between galaxies. His ship's computer could not even display readings for what it was detecting. The numbers just showed as error messages. "Fleet Command," he transmitted. "We have a problem. Something is coming through the galactic barrier, something that makes the Voidborn look like children's toys." Ambassador Carter was in the middle of mediating another dispute between alien species when every communication system in the council chambers activated at once. The same message was being broadcast on every frequency, translated into every known language. It was coming from the now awakened Voidborn. "Biological entities," the message said. "We have failed in our primary mission. The hunger has returned ahead of schedule. Our defensive preparations are incomplete. We calculate a 12.7% probability of galactic survival without immediate cooperation between all conscious entities." General Sullivan looked up from his tactical planning to see his aide, Lieutenant Sarah Price, running toward him with a data pad. Her face was pale with terror. "Sir, you need to see this. Our long-range sensors are picking up massive distortions at the galactic rim. Whatever is coming It is bigger than anything we have ever encountered, and it is moving fast. Morrison activated the emergency communication system that connected him to every ship in the Allied fleet. All commands, this is Admiral Morrison. Prepare for immediate transition to threat level Omega. We are about to face something that makes our previous enemy look like a training exercise. As the first waves of the hunger reached the outer star systems, entire solar systems simply stopped existing, not destroyed or consumed, but erased from reality, as if they had never been there at all. The war against the Voidborn was over. The war for existence itself was about to begin. Captain Davis looked up at the strange, shifting sky and realized that humanity's greatest test was still to come. They had united the galaxy against the machines, but now they needed to unite with the machines against something that could destroy the very concept of existence. The real war was just beginning. Admiral Morrison stood in the command center of his flagship, watching the galaxy die. The massive displays showed red zones spreading from the galactic rim inward, like a terrible infection. Entire star systems were simply vanishing, not destroyed, but erased from reality as if they had never existed at all. "Report," he ordered his communications officer. Lieutenant Dan Brooks looked pale as he read from his screen. "Sir, we have lost contact with 47 outer rim colonies in the past 6 hours. Long-range sensors show nothing where those systems used to be. Not debris, not radiation, nothing." Dr. Amy Rodriguez was working frantically at her science station trying to understand what they were facing. The readings made no sense according to any known physics. "Admiral, this entity is not operating within normal space-time. It exists in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Our weapons cannot even target something like that." Admiral Morrison activated the emergency channel that connected him to every ship in the combined fleet. Human vessels, Draconian cruisers, Thraxian battle groups, luminary energy ships, and even the newly awakened Voidborn constructs all waited for his orders. "All commands, this is Morrison. We are facing an enemy that threatens the existence of reality itself. This is not about territory or resources anymore. This is about survival of everything we know." Captain Helen Davis received a priority message on her liberated world. The trapped consciousness patterns in the Voidborn towers were becoming active, communicating directly with her team through the machines that held them. "They are trying to tell us something," reported Dr. Ben Collins. "The preserved minds from extinct civilizations have information about the hunger. They faced it before, millions of years ago." Davis activated her communicator. "What are they saying?" "The hunger is not evil," Collins translated. "It is desperate. It comes from a reality that is dying, and it consumes other realities to survive. But there might be another way to stop it." Dr. Lucy Chen was making the breakthrough that would save the galaxy. Working with luminary scientists and Voidborn computational systems, she discovered that the trapped consciousness patterns were not just prisoners. They were the galaxy's memory preserved across millions of years of history. "I need to speak to Admiral Morrison immediately," she told her research team. "I know how to defeat the hunger, but it will require every living being in the galaxy to work together." Her plan was impossible by any normal standard. She wanted to merge human innovation with alien wisdom and Voidborn processing power to create something that had never existed before. A weapon made not of metal or energy but of pure consciousness and will. Commander Tony Parker received the most dangerous assignment in galactic history. His ship had been modified with technology from a dozen different species and powered by quantum processors donated by the Voidborn. The vessel itself was designed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, allowing it to actually fight an enemy that operated outside normal reality. "Remember," Dr. Chen told him over the communication system, "you are not just carrying weapons. You are carrying the combined consciousness of every sapient species that ever lived in this galaxy. Their memories, their knowledge, their determination to survive." Parker looked at his crew, a mixture of humans and aliens who had volunteered for what everyone knew was likely a suicide mission. "Are we ready to do something impossible?" Sergeant Kelly Ryan, now serving as his weapons officer, smiled grimly. "Sir, impossible is what humans do best." The final battle began at the edge of the galaxy, where reality was thinnest. Parker's ship entered the zone where the hunger was strongest, immediately feeling the effects of existing in multiple dimensions. Colors became sounds, gravity flowed like water, and time moved in circles. Through the chaos, Parker could see the hunger's true form. It was not a monster or a machine, but something like a cosmic wound, a tear in the fabric of existence that consumed everything it touched because it was trying to heal itself. "Communications, try to establish contact," Parker ordered. His communications officer, Lieutenant Alex Ford, worked with equipment that barely functioned in the distorted space around them. "Sir, I am getting something. It is not language exactly, but I think it understands us." What Parker learned changed everything. The hunger was not invading their reality out of malice. It was fleeing from something even worse in its own dimension. Its reality was collapsing, and consuming other universes was the only way it knew to survive. "Can we help it find another solution?" Parker asked. Back at Fleet Command, Ambassador Lisa Carter was coordinating the most complex diplomatic negotiation in history. She was trying to convince an entity that existed outside normal reality to trust a galaxy full of beings it had been unconsciously destroying. "We understand your desperation," she transmitted toward the galactic edge. "We offer you alliance instead of conquest. Help us preserve this reality and we will help you find a way to save your own." The response came not in words but in images and emotions that flooded every mind in the galaxy simultaneously. The hunger showed them its dying reality, consumed by entropy and darkness. It showed them eons of loneliness and desperate searching for any way to continue existing. Dr. Rodriguez made the final connection that solved the crisis. Working with preserved consciousness patterns from civilizations that had faced the hunger before, she discovered that the entity could be transformed. Instead of consuming realities, it could become a guardian of them. "The key is symbiosis," she explained to Admiral Morrison. "The hunger needs stable reality to exist in. We need protection from other extragalactic threats. We can give each other what we both need." The solution required unprecedented cooperation. Human creativity designed the process. Alien wisdom provided the knowledge. Void-born computational power made the calculations, and the trapped consciousness patterns from extinct civilizations provided the emotional foundation that convinced the hunger to trust them. Parker's ship became the focal point for the transformation. As reality warped around him, he felt the presence of every being who had ever lived in the galaxy joining together in a single moment of unified will. "Now," he said quietly, the change was visible across the entire galaxy. The spreading zones of non-existence stopped growing and began to heal. The hunger's destructive influence transformed into something protective, creating barriers against even worse threats that lurked in the spaces between realities. Admiral Morrison watched his displays as the crisis readings changed from red to green. For the first time in days, star systems stopped disappearing. Space itself began to stabilize. "Status report," he called out. "Sir," Lieutenant Brooks replied with amazement in his voice. "All threatened systems are stable. The entity has ceased hostile actions. Long-range sensors show it is actually repairing some of the damage it caused." Captain Davis felt the change on her liberated world as well. The trapped consciousness patterns in the void-born towers were no longer screaming. They were singing. Their voices joined with the transformed hunger in a harmony that could be felt across dimensions. 5 years later, Ambassador Carter stood before the reformed Galactic Council in a chamber that now included representatives from species that had been extinct for millions of years. The trapped consciousness patterns had been successfully extracted from the void-born machines and given new forms, allowing ancient civilizations to contribute their knowledge to the galaxy's future. The hunger, now calling itself the Guardian, maintained reality anchors throughout the galaxy that prevented future incursions from other extragalactic threats. It had found purpose in protection rather than consumption. "The human delegation presents the final report on the Reality Stabilization Project," Carter announced to the Assembly. Admiral Morrison, now serving as Galactic Defense Coordinator, looked out at a galaxy transformed. Human innovation had sparked the changes, but it was the cooperation of every species, living and preserved, that made victory possible. The war was over. Humanity had not just saved the galaxy from the Voidborn or even from the hunger. They had shown that impossible problems could be solved when different types of thinking worked together. The galaxy was no longer just a collection of competing civilizations. It had become something new, a community that spanned dimensions and included consciousness from across millions of years of history. And at the center of it all, the small species that had once hidden in the shadows had become the bridge that connected everything together, proving that sometimes the greatest strength comes not from power, but from the willingness to find solutions where others see only problems.